I call this meeting to order. Adoption of agenda. I got mover, Councillor Neal, seconder, Councillor Wilson, that the council adopt the agenda for the meeting April 20th, 2021 as amended. PWCS 2021-31 has been pulled for more information forthcoming. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adoption of the minutes. Council meeting minutes of April 6, 2021. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that the council meeting minutes of April 6, 2021 be hereby adopted. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Mayor's report. On Wednesday, April 7th, I met virtually with MPP Jeff Birch to discuss our infrastructure projects and possible funding opportunities, as well as vaccine rollout in Niagara. On April 8th, Marco Marino, Economic Development Manager, and I virtually attended the Niagara Industrial Association AGM and presented them with the certificate of congratulations on the Community Leadership Award, which they received from the GNCC in the Niagara Business Achievement category. It was an honor to speak at this event, and also worth noting is that the City of Thorold is a member of the NIA. On Monday, April 12th, our CAO, Manoj Dalwaria, Economic Development Manager, Marco Marino, and I met by Zoom with Hope Ports to keep the lines of communications open and get an update on the Thorold Multimodal Hub. This exciting initiative is generating a lot of interest in the business community. On Tuesday, April 13th, I attended the One Thorold virtual meeting. One important upcoming initiative will be a community-wide food drive, which will be held on Sunday, June 6th. More details will be available in the near future, including COVID-19 safety protocols for this event. We continue to have bi-weekly updates, public health updates from Dr. Hergy, with the next one on April 30th at 2 p.m. These sessions are live streamed on the Niagara Region website. The regional chair and area mayors issued a statement of support for Niagara's small businesses. The letter included some of the initiatives municipalities in Niagara have implemented, like deferring property taxes, eliminating fees for business and patio licensing, allowing street closures and patio extensions, implementing buy local campaigns, and expediting approval and licensing processes. All of this has not been enough, though we are grateful for recent budget investments from the government. Businesses will not survive if we do not do more. We are asking for continued financial supports and extended benefits for businesses from the provincial and federal governments, including previously funded benefits and programs need to be distributed as quickly as possible, introduction of new supports, or reopening applications for all affected businesses with streamlined processes, federal and provincial coordination to provide sick leave benefits, ensuring unallocated funds are dispersed immediately. The light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines is here, but the devastation suffered by our small business community will have long-lasting effects on our economy. They are too essential. And worth noting, if the budget passes, there are new supports and extension of existing supports in the budget, if the budget passes. As well, the province is relooking at the sick leave benefit issue. So those are both good things to hear in the last day. The other media release from Niagara Health was supported by 70 community leaders from across Niagara, including Fire Chief Terry Dixon and myself. And I'm going to read it. Niagara Health is experiencing unprecedented pressures and needs our community's support to help protect capacity for life-saving critical care and other patient services. The situation is serious in Niagara as it is across the province. More than 70 leaders from across the region are supporting Niagara Health and healthcare providers who are working full out to care for Niagara residents. We strongly urge every member of our community to follow public health guidelines 100% of the time. It will save lives. Now more than ever, we are in it together and need support from one another as we fight through the third wave of this dreadful pandemic. We've vaccinated more than 24% of Niagara residents, and that's now over 25%, beginning with those the highest risk populations. More than 125,000 doses have been administered in our community, and the number of COVID-19 vaccinations increases each day by the thousands. At the same time, however, there is reason for concern. Niagara Health is experiencing unprecedented pressures and is asking for your help to protect capacity of life-saving critical care and other patient services. This is also the case for hospitals across the province and beyond. Let's remember the 379 people who contracted COVID-19 and died, along with their loved ones who are grieving these terrible losses. There are currently 1,405 active cases in our community, a number that has been growing at a concerning rate over the past couple of weeks. There have been so many challenges thrown our way over the past 14 months. We know people are hurting and we know you are frustrated. Now more than ever, we need to support one another, follow public health guidelines, masking, physical distancing, hand washing, and keeping contact with members of your own household only. Support local businesses, stores, restaurants, wineries, and other merchants, and be kind. And that was a letter, again, that was sent out from Niagara Health and signed and supported by 70 members of the community. And on Monday, April 12th, Niagara Health also issued a community message from Lynn Guerrero, Niagara Health President and interim CEO. I believe this important message should be read, and it's on their website, and I also think it's posted on our website. I must also state that I was saddened and disappointed that Councillor Hanley chose to attend the rally in St. Catharines. As a councillor, you represent the city of Thorold, and when you attend any event, that is the perception of the community, and you are held to a higher standing. I think we can all agree that there is a feeling of COVID fatigue, not only in our community, but across Niagara and beyond. We can voice our opinion, frustration, and place blame at every level of government, but the issues we face are real and require our immediate attention. Niagara Health, Public Health, and our frontline healthcare workers have spoken and lived this pandemic on the front lines from day one. They are tired, frustrated, have sacrificed for all of us, and need our unified support now more than ever. Together, by following the public health safety measures, provincial regulations, and getting vaccinated when your time comes up, we will get to the other side of this pandemic sooner rather than later. The latest announcement on the vaccination front is the lowering of the minimum age for the AstraZeneca vaccine to 40 years and older beginning today. This vaccine will be offered at pharmacy and primary care settings. Once again, as the mass vaccine rollout continues, please stay the course. We are in the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, and as variant cases continue to rise, the importance of following public health safety measures is imperative. Please follow these measures, continue to support one another, our frontline workers, those less fortunate or living alone, and more than ever, our local businesses who are the backbone of our community. And that's the end of my mayor's report. Right. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Seeing that I was mentioned in regards to attending the lockdown, and since you spoke about me and disappointed, I was disappointed during the Black Lives Matters protest because the same recommendation and code was in there then. I don't need to read it. I sent it to numerous of you, but it was recommended that no more than 5 people meet outside, no parading. That was a prohibition order that was in effect on June the 7th, 2020, when the Black Lives Matters protest happened. The same order that was in effect when Jim Hanley attended the support of no more lockdowns. And I was targeted for my beliefs and outspoken theories Why was I only charged and a few other individuals? And if you want to speak about it, I'm going to speak about it tonight in the bylaw recommendation. So I don't appreciate you talking about me. That's personal. And I know I do represent the city as a councillor, but I do have rights, and my Canadian Charter rights overrides any bylaw or any mandate, Mr. Mayor. There's not one person that's been convicted yet in Canada of attending any of these rallies. And in fact, in Alberta, they've all been quashed. And when we get to the bylaw section of asking for more bylaw officers, I have several questions in regards to that specific thing. So I attended as Jim Hanley, as well as my 85-year-old father and his 94-year-old friend, who both lived through the Second World War. The one was born during the First World War, and they also believe that their constitutional rights are being violated. And I exercised my rights, Mr. Mayor, just as they did for the Black Lives Matter rally. But because it wasn't politically correct, I'm being condemned for my actions. I have rights as a Canadian citizen. I will exercise my rights, and I will continue to do so. Because today, Canadians can learn a lot from the soldiers, like I had mentioned in an email that I sent you yesterday. So I do have rights. I'm fighting that, as you all know, fines, and I've not been fined, just so you all know. I've been given a citation. A fine is when you've actually made a payment. And I'm going to continue to do what I believe is right, Mr. Mayor. And you're more or less saying that if I don't toe the line, it's not in respect to what I should be doing as a councillor. Well, I'm doing what I should do as a Canadian citizen, and for what my ancestors and forefathers fought for in both the First World War and the Second World War. And as Prime Minister Trudeau did in 1982, when he wrote the Canadian Constitution and the Charter of Rights, the bylaw states at the bottom of it, if you read, Mr. Mayor, Charter of Rights, because it does not supersede the Charter of Rights. It's a mandate. It's not a law. A law has to be read 3 times and then have royal assent. So I just want to make that point across, Mr. Mayor. So you can criticize me all you want.
I just made a statement, and that's the way it is. Go ahead.
You criticized me for going, but you didn't say nothing last year when they went to the Black Lives Matter protest, when it was only in the first stage, the most critical time for people to stay in, but then it was politically correct.
I'm talking about a Thorold councillor that was there. Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
You mentioned my name specifically.
I'm going to mention it now too. Jim, you're embarrassing the city. When you are elected, you
That's a point of order, Mr. Mayor. That's a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
We don't debate this.
It's
This isn't a debate. I don't think it's
conduct of the
appropriate.
city to allow a councillor to lambaste another councillor publicly, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
You
Hanley,
can't allow that.
I just said, you called a point of order, and I said, that's the end of this discussion. We're moving on, okay? We're going to move on now to public meetings. Proposed zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. Opening remarks and purpose of meeting. This public meeting is being held pursuant to the provisions of section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The applicant seeks approval to amend zoning bylaw number 60, 2019 from future development zone to residential zone R1C, R3B, site-specific and open space parks and recreation OS1 zone. The relief requested includes amendments to minimum lot area, maximum lot coverage, landscaped open space, garage width and lot frontage, and encroachments for townhouses. The applicant seeks approval for a draft plan of subdivision for 81 dwelling units consisting of 30 single detached lots and 12 townhouse blocks. Council will receive and consider all comments received at the public meeting. No decision on the applications is being made this evening. Zoning bylaw amendment. Any of the following no later than 20 days after giving notice may appeal the decision by filing with the city the notice of appeal that must be sent out, that must set out the reasons for the appeal accompanied by the tribunal's fee. The applicant, a person or public body who before the amendment and the bylaw were passed made oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions to council, and the minister. If a person or public body did not make an oral
Point of order.
submission at the public meeting or provide written submissions to council. Go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
I think I have a conflict. I think you skipped that part of the meeting, of the agenda. Did you not?
If I did, I'm sorry. And you have a conflict on this?
Yes, on DF 2021-11.
Okay, that's duly noted. Did you, City Clerk? Is there anyone else in case I missed anyone? Okay, thank you. If a person or public
Thank
body
you.
did not make an oral submission at the public meeting or provide written submissions to council before the bylaw was passed, the tribunal will determine if there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Plan of subdivision. Any of the following no later than 20 days after giving notice may appeal the decision, the lapsing provision, or any other conditions to the tribunal by filing with the city the notice of appeal that must set out the reasons for the appeal accompanied by the tribunal's fee. The applicant, the public body who before council made its decision, made oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to council. A person listed in subsection 5148(3) of the Planning Act, who before council made its decision, made oral or written submissions to council. The minister, the municipality in which the land is located. If a person or public body did not make an oral submission at the public meeting or provide written submissions to council before the decision was given, the tribunal will determine if there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. For further information on appeals or for preserving your appeals rights, please speak with the city planner. Presentation from applicant's planning consultant and Upper Canada Consultants, and up is William Haiku. I'll get that right.
You got it right the second time. Thank you.
Go ahead, William.
Just going to share my screen here, Mr. Mayor. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation. I trust you can all see that. Thank you, and good evening again, Mr. Mayor and council members and anyone watching this evening. Thank you for having me. My name is William Haiku. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants, representing the owner of the subject site for tonight's public meeting, known as Hansler Heights Phase 2. This proposal is an extension of the Phase 1 Hansler Heights, which was previously approved by council in 2016. Phase 1 is currently in its final stages of construction, and the developer is now ready to proceed with the second phase. The subject site is municipally known as 1110 Hansler Road. The property currently has frontage along Hansler Road and Wilkerson Street. The property is located directly to the south of the Phase 1 lands that you can see the lotting pattern in this aerial photograph here. The subject site is designated for residential development in the Port Robinson West Secondary Plan. The former industrial facility that you can see in this aerial photograph is in the final stages of demolition, and we're working on completing the necessary assessments to ensure that the lands are suitable for residential use. The proposal before you tonight consists of two applications. First, a draft plan of subdivision, and secondly, a zoning bylaw amendment. The proposal includes a park shown in green as part 3, 30 single detached dwellings shown as part 1 in yellow, and 51 street townhouse dwellings shown as orange or part 2. The park that you can see in part two is really an extension and enlargement of the park in phase one. We completed this crescent design, or the street A as you're seeing here, in a particular way so that we could enlarge this pond and make better use of it in the long term. And that will certainly satisfy the requirement for parkland dedication. The other areas that you can see are basically residential dwelling units fronting along that street A. So here you can see the actual proposed draft plan, further delineating the lots and blocks. You can see the lots numbered here from 1 through 30, and the blocks for street townhouses numbered 31 through 42, with block 43 being the proposed park. So in terms of the proposed housing types, the single attached dwellings will vary throughout the development. However, we were able to get our hands on some preliminary renderings here for you. Generally speaking, the buildings will include high quality design, high quality building materials such as brick masonry, brick, stonework, some board and batten, and will include a range of different models and color schemes. Again, here's some additional typologies of the street townhouse dwellings. Again, you're going to see various different brick facades, stone masonry treatments with that board and batten finishes. There'll be a range of traditional to some more modern dwelling units as well. So those are an example of what the street townhouse dwellings look like. Just keeping it fairly brief today, but the result of the proposed development makes use of an underutilized site within the city's urban boundary. The proposed residential zoning and draft plan of subdivision will facilitate the development of these 81 proposed dwelling units. The combination of both the singles and the street towns allows a balanced development, and essentially is the same built form as phase one. So we're really seeing a compatible development come through and echo a lot of what's happened in terms of built form to date. Through this, we'll see, finalization of a neighborhood area within the city of Thorold, as this is right up against the Welland municipal boundary. And we'll see a new municipal roadway with sidewalks and boulevard trees and a connection from Hansler Road into the park area. So thanks for your time this evening, and I'm certainly available for any questions should you or any counselors have any. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Are there any questions for William? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you for your presentation, William. I just have a question that comes up a lot with people out there near the Lamb Crescent area. That block 43, that's a park the way I look at it, and it's going to remain a park, or will be built as a park?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's a current existing park that was developed through phase one. So this will be an extension to that park. So that area needs to be graded off and obviously designed appropriately through engineering design drawings. So the park as it exists today will be enlarged from what's out there.
Or what's out there. Okay. And do you have a timeline on that? I know I'll be asked, or
Mr. Mayor, that's subject to your approval on this application.
Okay.
My client's hoping to get to construction as soon as possible.
Okay.
We're probably talking later this year if everything goes well.
Okay. Because a lot of people comment that they move to an area when they know the park's going to be built, and then sometimes the park doesn't get built. They just want to make sure that this is where they're moving into. So thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hycoop. Mr. Hycoop, can you just explain what the zoning change is you require? I missed it if you did mention it. Sorry.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, no problem at all. So currently the site was zoned as a future development zone in the city's new 2019 bylaw. It was formerly zoned as a light industrial zone for the former use in the 97 bylaw. So by virtue of proposing development on it, we are required to implement the required residential zones. So today we're proposing 3 different zones. One open space and park zone for the park area, and that's just a standard zone. For the street townhouse dwellings, we're proposing an R3 zone. And for the single attached dwellings, we are proposing an R3B for the street towns. And for the singles, we are proposing an R1C zone. So we're making some small modifications to those. There is from a street townhouse perspective, we are looking to increase to 50% lot coverage and reduce the landscape space to 30%, as well as just minorly increase the garage size from 50% frontage to 60% frontage. So these provisions are something that we've applied for before and are reflective of good urban design practices. So we're hoping to implement those here as well. And like I said, because of the future development zone, we had no choice but to come in for a zoning amendment on this one.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So similar to a proposal from a few weeks ago, this is looking at the increased lot coverage also.
Yes, that's correct. And whereas this one's a little bit different from the one a couple of weeks ago, we're only looking for 50% lot coverage. I think that the developer in this instance wasn't prepared to go up to the 55%. And I think we took the comments from council about that extra surplus that we're looking for on sheds and rear decks and whatnot. You know, like it was said at that time, if individual homeowners want to come in later for further variances, they certainly have the opportunity to do that.
Great. So it sounds like you're listening to us. Good. Thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions for William? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, William.
Thank you.
Presentation from city staff. I want to get this right. Bryn O'Neill, senior planner, will be presenting on behalf of city staff. Go ahead, Bryn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just share my screen. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Bryn O'Neill. I am a senior planner with the planning department. I will just go through a few of the details that William Hycoop, he did a pretty thorough presentation, so I'll just go over everything else just so we're clear. So it is an application for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. It's on a formal industrial parcel south of Merritt Road and north of Towpath, and access is off Hansler Road and Wilkerson Street. William did go through the details of the proposal. So it's 30 single detached dwellings, which has similar lot sizes to phase 1 of Hansler Heights, and then 51 townhouse units, which also will have similar lot sizes to phase 1 townhouses. So it's a total of 81 units, and 1 new street is proposed. The official plan designates the property as low density residential and permits the proposed use. And this property, it's located within the Port Robinson West Secondary Plan area and is permitted under the official plan as it stands now. As mentioned, the property is currently zoned future development, so a zoning bylaw amendment is required. The proposed zones are R1C for the single detached dwellings R3B for the townhouses, and then an open space zone for the park, which will be in the northeast corner. So in terms of public comments we've received one email from a member of the public with concerns regarding construction, road maintenance, and garbage that is typically seen through construction, as well as concerns with stormwater management and trees. The resident was advised that we do have the developer is required to submit a detailed stormwater management design to deal with stormwater management concerns. So that's part of the process to ensure that there's no concerns. Any new development will require trees, street trees, and then of course there will be the parkland as well. And then the developer is obligated to keep their sites and public roads cleaned through subdivision agreement requirements. And of course, we'll address any concerns the residents or public may have through the report that will come to council at a later date. So I think that's a very brief presentation. If you do have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
I just have one, and Brian might not be able to answer it. Not really on this, but I noticed the name Towpath. A while ago, we brought up to city staff about the street naming and duplicate street names. Is this, can I ask now where that's sitting, or is that not? Because I saw it on the blueprint there, and was wondering where that's sitting.
Through the
Denise?
mayor, I would probably have to defer that to Denise.
Denise is there. She can answer.
Thank you, Bryn. Through the mayor to the councillor, we have notified residents that we do intend on changing the street McCartney in the neighboring subdivision. So they've all been made aware that within a minimum of 60 days, we will be changing that street name. And we did propose a new name from that street based on the new approved policy for the city for street naming. In terms of this subdivision, this one that Bryn just presented on, the street names will be determined later in the process when they come in for final approval. At that point, they will have to pick a name from the approved street naming list, or if there's another name that they would like, the name would have to be approved by the street naming committee, which is a committee that's made up of senior staff internally, as well as a member of the Heritage Committee. So this will help to ensure that we have no duplicate street names moving forward.
Thank you. Any further questions?
And what about the towpath that I saw?
What's
What-
that?
Excuse me, what about the towpath that I saw on that? I saw towpath on that drawing.
Through the mayor to the councillor, towpath.
That's a
is
duplicate name.
Yes, through the mayor to the councillor. We were first looking at addressing McCartney, as McCartney was the one that was initially brought up to be addressed. We are anticipating on coming back with another report to council outlining what it would look like to go through a process of changing existing streets, recognizing that a lot of these streets have been long-standing in the community and that it may be a more difficult process. So we did move forward with the McCartney, as that street had just been created and no homes have been occupied at this point. It was an easier name to change.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Bryn, for your presentation. Do we, up next? Public participation, okay, public participation, public input. Now at this time, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on the applications received? Please indicate to the clerk your desire to speak. And you say we have one person on? Okay, are they ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Please provide your name and address for the public record.
Yeah, it's Shauna Sweck and Troy Ormerod, and we live at 1565 Barron Road.
Go ahead.
And we would just like to talk about the houses that are being built to the west of our house and behind our house. So firstly, I just want to say that most of the residents that reside in this area have been here for about 30 plus years, and we are friends with many of them. And a lot of them have said that they haven't been notified about this because they, A, do not have computers, and B, obviously, if they don't have computers, they don't know how to email. Secondly, about the houses, the cost of sidewalks, street lights, pumping stations, road signs, and our taxes going up because of this is not worth for 22 houses being built. And I'm glad Hydro One knows the costs and declined. Also, the report from Beacon Environmental is insufficient considering it was done in June, but mentions that the deer don't nest in the forest in the winter. And how would they know that or come to a conclusion about that if there was no studies done in the winter? The deer nest in and behind lots 17 and 13. We see them almost every day all year long, going from the railroad tracks to the forest to the west. They also mention that there are barn swallows in the broken down house to the west, which are endangered birds, yet that also still passed on Beacon Environmental, which I don't understand. If birds are endangered, how does that pass?
Shauna, I got to interrupt you for a sec because you're speaking about a different development than the one that we're talking about, Hansler Estates now. And I think you're speaking at the one on Barron Road.
Yes, that's the one we were supposed to be speaking for.
So
do we just wait until that one comes up then?
yes, because there's a report coming, and when that one comes up, yes, you can speak then. Okay?
Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's good. Is there anyone else on? Okay, so public input again. Now at this time, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on the applications received? Please indicate to the clerk your desire to speak. And there's no one on, so we have no speakers. I'll just read it one more time. Now at this time, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on the applications received? Please indicate to the clerk your desire to speak. And there is no one. Closing remarks and closing of the meeting. This fulfills the requirement of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13 pursuant to section 34. Council will consider staff's recommendation report at a future meeting date. Please provide your contact information and indicate to the clerk at clerk@thorold.ca if you wish to receive notice of council's decision. Alternatively, a letter requesting to receive notice of council's decision may be sent to the clerk. As such, the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. Okay, we have no statement by councilors, no delegations, consent reports. We have reports A to H and J to O. I has been pulled. Is there anybody that wants to pull a report? Go ahead, Councilor DeRose. What report?
For you, Mr. Mayor, 38.
What one?
38. 38.
Okay. That's Kate. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to any other report?
Mayor, can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
Did you remove 31 PWCS 2021?
31's been pulled. Okay.
I'm sorry.
31's been pulled.
Okay, and so it's a future. It'll come up at a future meeting.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And
So
you
just
want
38. Yeah, I'd like to speak on 38 later. Yes.
problem. Anyone else? Okay, so what we're going to do now is 38 is K. We're going to approve A to H and J to O with the exception of K.
Mr. Mayor. We also need to have a different mover and seconder for A. Councillor Kenny has a conflict on that.
Oh, okay, so we'll do A first. I need a Can I get a mover and a seconder? Counselor Wilson's going to move it, and a seconder, Counselor Sentence. DF 2021-11. And Counselor Kenny's declared a conflict, so he will not be participating in this. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so now we're going to do B to H, J to O, with the exception of K. Okay, and I have a mover, Counselor Kenny, and a seconder, Counselor Longo. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so we have K, PWCS 2021-38. I got a mover, Counselor Kenny, and a seconder, Counselor Longo, and I'll turn this over to our Director of Public Works and Community Services. And Jeff Holman will speak, and then Counselor DeRose will go from there, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the report.
Sorry.
Computer volume. There you go.
Mr. Mayor, the report is that the recommendation is that the report be received for information.
Okay, and now speakers to the report, Counselor DeRose, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to go through the report. I have a couple of questions to ask. I'm looking right now at page 27, design team errors and omissions and design change. Can I just ask one question? Are we differentiating between the two of errors and omissions, or are they just all blended together?
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as part of the review of the project, consortiums hired UEM, which is a consulting firm to look after project administration. And they're going through each payment certificate and are determining which requests for additional funding come as a result of a contractor error or a design error or design omission. And I think it's important to distinguish those as we go through the process. At the end of the day, there will be some conversation, I suppose, about the architect's performance. And by having these extra costs split into those categories, it makes it easier to determine where the accountability should fall.
Thank you. So my concern is, Jeff, is the region's going to take over all the overruns, and people seem to forget sometimes that half our taxes go to the region. So that's my concern there. And so I'm just hoping they get their act together, because there are some crazy numbers with some of these errors and omissions. On page 33, Jeff, consortium requested change. Who makes those decisions, since we don't really have an official consortium deal yet? So who is the consortium? Are we making decisions already in regards to the consortium? In request that, like, just on page 33, yeah. So if you refer to page 33, I just had a couple questions on that page. So is it, when it says consortium requested change, who is the consortium at this point making these changes?
So, Mr. Mayor, these are requests that the contractor is waiting for some direction from the owners. The consortium are acting as the owners now. And as those issues come up in the middle of construction, there needs to be some decision made. We get advice from our consultants on whether or not they're appropriate or whether they're extras. And perhaps, as Councillor Kenny can attest, there are a number of requests that come up that are turned down simply because we don't think they add value. But there are some things that need to be added in order to complete the project. And in order to keep the project moving, they need to get this authorization to proceed. And this direction comes from representatives from all the consortium partners.
Thank you for explaining, Jeff. Now, as I go down that page, 9.3 CO number above ground track and field equipment, $343,200. Logo changes in CO 79, track and field equipment, $45,468.68. I just see this continuously building expenses, and there wasn't a lot of detail in why these things were changed. Are they going to provide detail, Jeff? Jeff, I just wanted to ask you, who prepared the report from the consortium, or from the? Is it an accountant? Is it someone that crunches the numbers there? Who put this report, the 62-page report, together?
Mr. Mayor, this is the consultant that we've hired as a group that comes out of, you may recall, the $200,000 that we set aside for project management. This is UEM, Urban Environmental Management, who compile these requests on a monthly basis, and they are explained at meetings that we have every other Friday. And some of them go into more detail than others. If you'd like a deeper explanation, I could certainly help you on individual ones, but I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. I wasn't expecting that tonight. I just wanted to know if we can have, I'll approach you separately on that. Now, the biggest thing that concerns me is when you go up to page 51, and it talks about potential project risks. And this is what really should concern everybody on council. If I can just get my computer going. Shoot. Hang on a sec. Anyway, if you, Jeff, do you have it in front of you? I'm looking at the potential project risk, because budget risks. And it states the budget risk is very high. And so that really concerns me. Can you just explain that statement, how they came to that conclusion? And I think most of us have. Sure. So that is a concern of mine, and it should be of everybody on council. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Section 18 in each one of the reports talks about potential risks to the project. Councillor DeRose is pointed out that the budget is definitely at risk based on some of the decisions that had to be made early on the project, most notably with respect to the soil conditions during the initial construction of the foundation, to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million. So that has been identified as a potential risk. As we get closer towards the end of the project, by identifying the risks to the project, we can look at opportunities to save some money, provided it doesn't result in additional operating expenses. So there's a real balance here, Councillor, and the rest of council. And this risk has been identified fairly early on in the process, continues to be a concern as we get close to the finish line here.
Okay, and just one more thing, Jeff. Thank you. Just reading your report, it states, in our efforts to finalize this working arrangement with our consortium partners is complicated by the need to focus on managing the COVID-19 pandemic. We're paying these lawyers well. I know COVID has delayed things, but basically, is this what you're saying? Is that, like, if I take it literally, that COVID has delayed the negotiations with the lawyers, the process that the lawyers are involved in? Am I reading that wrong, or?
Well,
because I could see the COVID expenses and other repercussions, but it makes it sound like due to the pandemic, the lawyers couldn't do their job, basically. Is that what I'm reading, or?
I hope you don't read it that way, Councillor.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we need to understand is that because of COVID, it not only impacted how we communicate and when we communicate, but it also has affected a number of things. So for example, the original game plan was that the project would be built and handed over to the consortium sometime just before the games that were originally planned in August of 21 this year. But because of COVID and because of the postponement of the games and the fact that the contract is going to require us to be handed over the keys to this project sooner than the games event, it creates some challenges for the consortium group now, who have to manage getting an operator on board and how that's going to be impacted by the games, which are going to be a year from now. There's a number of complications with respect to commissioning, when the ice plant will be available, and what does that mean to St. Catharines and Thorold in terms of our existing ice facilities. There's a lot of complications that have resulted in the postponement of the games. However, we've signed a construction contract and we're bound to hitting those deliverables. So I guess the short answer is communication is impacted, especially not just because we're dealing with 3 other partners, but you're dealing with federal government and the provincial government. There's an amendment to the transfer payment agreement. There's a number of discussions happening about how we're going to operate this facility now because the game is changed. So it's more complicated than what we think, and it's taken a lot more time.
So thank you, Jeff. So what you're saying, basically still a lot of unknowns.
Well, there will continue to be some unknowns until until we get handed the keys for the place, I think. But yeah, there's still some uncertainty about the deliverables and what's going to happen between now and then.
Okay, I just got one more thing to ask, Jeff. Thank you for your answers. I was under the impression, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that on November 10th of 2020, I thought we gave a directive to staff. And can you just, are we following that directive, or, I know we can't say much more, but so I'm a little confused about that.
I know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor DeRose, yes, the staff is following the directive from November 10th, 2020 meeting. As you rightly pointed out, we cannot discuss the resolution. The resolution has been provided to us by our clerk's office. And if the council wants to get into more details about the resolution and want to recap it, certainly we can arrange an in-camera meeting and we can go through that resolution that was passed on November 10th, 2020. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Wait, all those in favor again, please put up your hands so we can get this done. Opposed? Carried. And I got to go back to motions to receive and file minutes and adopt recommendations of council committees and boards, minutes to review for information purposes, moved by Councillor Decker and seconded by Councillor DeRose, that council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council and local boards as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we're going to move into discussion reports. Up first, PDS 2021-10, a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Hanley, and I'll turn this over to, who's presenting that from planning? Oh, our Director of Planning and Development Services, Paul Moore. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. I'm Paul Moore, Director of Planning and Development Services. At this time, I'd like to bring forward Paul Clausen, who's a senior planner and author of the report, and he can provide an overview of the report to council, and then we can help answer any questions that council might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we have someone who wants to speak on this report? Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report outlines staff's recommendation on draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications for a 22-unit single detached dwelling unit subdivision on the south side of Barron Road, west of Center Street in the community of Allenburg. Staff are recommending approval of the applications.
Thank you, Paul. And we had someone that was speaking earlier that actually wanted to speak to this report. Am I correct? Okay, so can we bring back Shauna? Shauna, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Again, please state your name and then we'll proceed.
So it's Shauna Sweck and Troy Ormerod, and we live at 1565 Barron Road. And our concerns, as I mentioned earlier, and sorry for repeating myself again. So all the neighbors in this area have been living here for 30+ years, and most of them have not been notified about what's going on, nor do they have computers or know how to email. My other concern is the cost of sidewalks, streetlights, pumping stations, road signs, and our taxes going up, because I don't think it's worth just 22 houses for all that cost, especially for houses to be squished in between our house and the canal. I did read in the one email report that Hydro One declined, so I'm glad they did. Also, the reports from Beacon Environmental, I've been a vet tech for 15 years, so I don't see how some of these reports can be passed, considering the report was done in June, but mentions that deer don't use the forestry to the west of the property in the winter. We have deer that nest in this area all year long, between lots 13 to 17 specifically. We see them going from the railroad to the forested area that they want to tear down every day, at least twice a day. They also mentioned that to the west of this property, there are barn swallows, which are a type of bird that are endangered in Ontario, that reside in the broken down house. But again, I don't understand how Beacon Environmental passed that, saying pretty much, oh no, the birds are gonna go away once we tear that down anyway. Also, the noise vibration, I think that they should be going around asking all the residents how this affects them, not just doing a simple little test. As I can assure you, our house is right next to the CN rail tracks, and the whole house vibrates 3 times a day, almost every day. And now Troy has a word to say.
Basically, what's going to happen if those 22 lots go in and the sidewalks go in? We will not be coming home to the horses walking down the road, nor the carriages and stuff that all the neighbors have around here. That'll all be taken away. They've taken the dirt bike and four-wheeling fun out of everyone's life at the other side of the Allenburg Bridge. Now they're going to do the same over here. We have multiple cars and trailers show up here every weekend with their friends and family to use the trails that the Seaway owns, and use their four-wheelers, dirt bikes, and walks and hikes. And we have photographers that come around. Again, that's all going to be gone for 22 lots. To me, just does not make sense. But I appreciate you guys listening to what I had to say, and I think that pretty much.
Also, the traffic is getting really bad on Center Street and Barron Road. And I just don't think 100-year-plus old house and the historical value should be ruined by squishing in just 22 houses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're done.
Shauna and Troy, any questions for Shauna or Troy? Seeing none again. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Hanley. Go ahead. You're muted.
Thank you. So you must then live at the, what is it, the old Vandenberg estate at the end of Center Street?
That is correct.
And now the proposal beside there. Now you're asking, if I can then through you, you mentioned about the swallows and the deer, and Can I ask you, Mr. Mayor, through the appropriate staff member, has a study been done for wildlife study, barn swallows, endangered species? I know we've had discussion in the same past with the bridge on South Street in Port Robinson, and that was one of the issues, was that there are barn swallows in that bridging area, and they are a protected species. Are we addressing that, or are we allowing them to, there must be something under the Protection Act in regards to that. Is there anything the city's doing in regards to that? And also, if I could just elaborate, okay, no, can I answer that first, please?
Yep, Paul, I'll turn that over to Paul.
Through the mayor, there was an environmental impact study done for in support of the development. I don't know the specifics in regards to every species that was observed or recorded during the study, but the conclusions of the study didn't identify any significant impacts on significant habitat in the area. So it was determined that with the mitigation measures that they're recommending, that the development wouldn't significantly impact any endangered species.
Okay, thank you.
You have another question?
For Paul Klassen, if I can, in regards to one of the agencies, Hydro One, not in agreement so far.
I'm not sure what that's referring to. Hydro One typically sends a letter saying that they don't approve of the development until their conditions are met. So that might be where that comment comes from. They did have conditions of approval, so those are included in the recommendation.
Okay, my reading of the element is that if we do pass this, that they would then have to cross over a Hydro One transmission corridor lands. And without getting permission from Hydro One, I do not actually believe that that development would proceed. Because I see they make a comment, the comments detailed herein do not constitute an endorsement of any element of the site plan design or road layout, nor do they grant any permission to access, use, proceed with works on or in any way after the transmission corridor lands with the express written permission of Hydro One networks. So basically, if Hydro One doesn't give the okay, in order for this subdivision to go through, they would be trespassing. Do I read that right?
Go ahead, Paul.
That comment's actually been on, I think, all of the letters we've received in response to development applications from Hydro One. So I think it's a standard statement that they always include. And the conditions that they have in that same letter are included as conditions of final approval. So unless Hydro One clears those conditions expressly in a letter to us, we're not approving the final plan of subdivision.
Thank you.
Okay, Hanley.
Thank you,
Any further-
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Paul. So should we be addressing this tonight before Hydro gives their blessing or not?
Through the mayor, that's what the conditions are for, that are noted in Hydro One's comments. They're all included as conditions of final subdivision approval. So the applicant is going to have the responsibility to address those by consulting with Hydro One and working with them to provide them the plans and clear their conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Denise, did you want to speak? I see you popped in there.
Through the mayor, I was just going to add to for Councillor Sentence that this is standard procedure. All agencies have conditions of approval for subdivisions. So the first step in the development process for subdivisions is to get the draft plan approval. And then there's always a set of conditions. So the applicant has to go away and do all the engineering work and all the detailed work and clear all the conditions of internal staff and agencies before they can come forward with the final approval. So this is standard clauses that Hydro One and other similar agencies always provide.
Okay, thank you. I just, sometimes we see everybody and everybody's okayed it and away we go with it. So thank you for clarification.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Neal. Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Did you say me?
Yeah, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Go
A couple of questions, a couple concerns. We do have the Allenbrook Community Center, which does have a small parquet beside it, but not a very good one. And there's no parquet designated for this particular development. A question three, I'm not sure who to put it through to, but are we going to be resolving the issue of putting a parquet or a park in the neighborhood of Allenbrook? Because there isn't one at the present moment from my perspective.
Go ahead, Paul.
Through the mayor, this development does not propose any parkland. They're going to be paying cash in lieu. So there is no park proposed as part of this development.
Well, my suggestion or recommendation is that we look at this a little further, because either we're going to put a better park in Allenbrook, or we ask the developer to put a parquet in this particular neighborhood, because if you notice behind their development going south, I'm sure that they're going to develop that property going south from the development that is there now. And I think that we need to look at creating a park of some type in the Allenbrook area.
Denise, did you want to speak on that?
Sure. Through the mayor to the councillor, this size of development would not typically require a park in such the size of a development. The Parks and Rec master plan may speak to the need for a park in this area and have recommendations on how to address kind of that component. The lands that are south of this development on the same parcel are actually not designated for residential. So this is the only residential you will see on this parcel. But I would defer to the Parks and Rec master plan in terms of plans for how to address the need for a park.
Then maybe I could, maybe Curtis can ask or answer that question tonight, or maybe a report come back regarding that at a later date.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Neal?
Yes, I do. The railway lines that the people that are on the line right now mentioned, they're shunting on that. And I didn't notice any berms along the back of the properties that are next to the railway tracks. And as we know, this rail line is going to get a lot busier than what it is right now, because we're putting some major projects down there. So I'm just wondering if that is the case, that there's going to be better bermage for that particular subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, the CN Rail Authority actually commented and provided conditions as well on this application. So one of their conditions is that a safety berm be provided along the back of the property, along the common corridor line. So that will be a condition of final subdivision approval. There's other conditions that CN included as well. And some of the measures being implemented are resulting from the noise and vibration studies that were completed for this project. So things like the setbacks and foundation isolation measures are going to be implemented through final subdivision approval as well.
Okay, my final question is regarding the roadways and the traffic with Center Street and Barron Road and this particular roadway coming out. Are there going to be stop signs or something at that corner, or how is that going to be handled?
Through the mayor, our engineering team is looking at the Allenbrook area right now. And Sean just popped on. I don't know if he wants to speak on this, but my understanding is that they're looking at the issue and coming up with a plan to move forward in addressing the issue in Allenbrook. So I'll turn it over to Sean.
Sean, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this application, along with another application in the general area, have spurred us to do a more holistic look at the transport or traffic and transportation in that whole Center Street Allenbrook area. So we will be coming to you shortly with a proposal for doing a a larger study that includes things like what happens when the Allenberg Bridge is up and how can we control the traffic better in that area during times of shutdown.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Neal, have any further questions?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Hanley, I see your hand up again. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards, if I could through to Sean. Sean, we've already done traffic studies in the area for the proposed ice facility was there, and it's been noted that some people are exceeding speeds of 100 kilometers plus on Center Street and on Barron Road, also in the Gaynor Street area. Now with the increased traffic, without some type of calming traffic measures in your study, I have to question how you're going to address the issue.
Yeah.
What is a plan? So that's going to come all part of the study?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's exactly the point in the study, is that although there's going to be an increase in traffic due to this development, that traffic will be relatively minor compared to what's out there already. And we just want to make sure that the whole area is functioning properly with this increase in traffic.
Because if I could too, Mr. Mayor, because my one concern is you mentioned about the Allenberg Bridge. Well, that depends on the shipping and the season, I believe, in regard to traffic, because the traffic fluctuates there. I believe we need to address the shortcut route that people are taking. That's what it basically has become. And maybe look at, if you could, through your study, of put some type of lighting in there. It seems that we've seen to take out streetlights and then put up traffic signs. Could we look at that also, possibly in the study, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's the exact point, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there any further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Put your hands up, please, so we can see them. Opposed? It's carried. Wait.
Right, no, it's not carried.
No, let me.
The tie vote.
All those in favor again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a tie, so I break the tie. I vote for. Okay. Now we move on to PDS 2021-16. I have a mover, Councillor Sentence, and a seconder, Councillor Longo. And who's presenting this? Jason. Go ahead, Jason Simpson, our Chief Building Official.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations of this report are: 1, the council approve the recruitment of 2 additional bylaw enforcement officers temporarily until September 2021, with the possibility of extension funded by the Safe Restart Program in efforts to assist with the increased demand during the COVID-19 pandemic. And 2, that council approve a $2,000 overrun to the bylaw enforcement capital budget to accommodate the purchasing of additional computer software licenses for the proposed positions. And that concludes the recommendations of this report.
Okay, speakers to the report. Councillor Hanley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, through you to Jason. Jason, is the Niagara Regional Police Services helping us in any way in enforcing these bylaws? Are they actually the ones attending and ticketing, or is this just a bylaw attending and no regional officers? Because I have concerns. Why should we be hiring 2 more bylaw enforcement officers when we're paying millions of dollars a year for police services in this municipality? Are the police not helping us in regards to enforcing this bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hanley, the Niagara Regional Police Service will assist after hours or as needed if bylaw enforcement contacts them for backup. But during business hours, it is primarily on the bylaw enforcement office to enforce the provincial orders.
Okay, can I ask you too, if officers do attend, are the police the ones writing the citations? Or is it the bylaw enforcement officers only writing the citations and not the law enforcement officers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hanley, both the bylaw enforcement officers as well as the police officers are authorized to write the certificates of offense. I am aware that our bylaw officers have written certificates of offense. The police officers may have, but I can't say that for certain.
On that note, since we've written some offensive, the city have any convictions yet on those offenses? Have they been before the courts yet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they have not. The provincial court system has been on hold due to the pandemic, and they're just starting back up now with some types of offenses, but not all offenses. So things have been on hold for the most part through the courts at this point.
Can I ask you, through you, Mr. Mayor, what provincial orders are you trying to uphold as bylaw officers? Is it in the city of Thorold? Is it emergency order 7.0.2? If I can ask. I'm asking that, Mr. Mayor, if you can, because orders made under section 7.02 of the Emergency Act are intended to promote the public good by protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the people in Ontario in times of declared emergency in a matter that is subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's why I asked that question, because I have concerns of, we have police officers out there. Why do we need to hire more bylaw enforcement officers? The police can come and assist us. Or is it because they have an oath of office that they won't?
Go ahead, Jason. I think we're having trouble with that connection. Jason, can you?
So through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hanley, I'll have to double check the actual reference from the, there's two different pieces of legislation that we're issuing or enforcing the orders from. There's the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act, as well as the Reopening Ontario Act. But I'd have to get back to you on the actual references from those pieces of legislation.
See, my concern is, Mr. Mayor, if I could through you, is that police officers are in fact not writing the tickets, that all tickets are being issued through municipal bylaw officers and Niagara Regional health enforcement officers. And I say that, Mr. Mayor, and I have concerns. I don't want to hire more bylaw enforcement officers because we have officers out there to help us. But my concern is, the officers won't help us because they took an oath of office. And the oath of officers, I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve. And that's my concern here, is that it's a bylaw. It's not an actual law. And I don't, I have concerns with the enforcement avenue that we're taking with it. And why are we not getting the assistance of the Niagara Regional Police in regards to this? And we do not need, I feel, to hire more bylaw enforcement officers. We pay millions of dollars a year in police protection, and that police protection should require them to come and assist us without us having to spend more of taxpayers' dollars to address issues that we have with COVID-19.
And I think, Councilor, the one point that was made here is that we got safe restart funding to pay for this, that it's not coming out of the general levy. Okay.
That's only up until, I believe, September 2021. I just wanted to make that note. Thank you very much.
And that's why that's what the ask is. Okay. Anyone else want to speak to that?
And if I could get Jason to answer the question, as he said he would look into it and get a response, please.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson, did you want to speak?
Yes, I was just trying to look for what I read, but there is a portion of it coming out of, for a budget overrun for computer software, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who I would ask that to through you, Mr. Mayor.
That would go to Jason. Go ahead. Jason, are you still there? I lost you here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I apologize. I apparently am having some connection issues here, so I've turned my video off to try and rectify that problem. But through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wilson, the Safe Restart program is only permitted to be used for operational costs, not capital costs. And because if these additional officers were approved by council, they would need computer licenses in order to access the computer systems. And that's the reason for the $2,000 ask, is to cover those capital costs associated with the computer software licensing.
Okay, and Jason, can you explain to us like what has led you to come to this request to hire additional bylaw officers? Like, what are you guys experiencing on a daily basis?
So through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Wilson, up until this point, we have been providing overtime opportunities to the bylaw officers for the past 13 or so months, since March of 2020, roughly. But the bylaw officers have been experiencing a significant amount of backlash and just overall fatigue like everybody else has in relation to the pandemic. And so it's becoming more difficult for the officers to be able to accommodate those overtime shifts to provide the level of enforcement throughout the community that has been provided up until this point. In addition to that, we're having challenges with getting the assistance that we were receiving from the region in the past, because the regional officers have been they have been put into security.
We lost him again. I can just expand on, can everybody hear me? The regional bylaw has been put into extra work at security at the mass vaccination sites. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do apologize for my connection issues, Council.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to Jason and his department, I did get 3 texts on Sunday night saying they were very happy with the presence of bylaw on the weekend. And, you know, we hear a lot of negative things, and I just wanted to, I was just looking for one of the texts, but of course, when you have to look for something, you can't find it. So I just wanted to say the people were very pleased in the Winterberry Foxgrape area with the presence of bylaw on the weekend. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much for sharing that, Councillor DeRose.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Senton, seconded by Councillor Longo. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we move through to notices of motion. There's no closed meeting. Bylaws. First reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 48, 2021, 49, 2021, 50, 2021, 51, 2021, 52, 2021, and that's it, right? Yep. And that the same now be read a first time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Final reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule to this council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adjournment. Moved by Councillor Decker, seconded by Councillor Wilson, that this meeting is hereby adjourned at 7:53 p.m. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I want to thank everybody for their participation.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great evening and stay safe. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Councillor DeRose, did you get the vaccine?
Mayor, I got to share a story with you. I did get it, but you want to hear a story? After you spoke, our last meeting, I get a call the next night.
One sec.
Oh, I'm sorry.